All right, and let's set dot network. It's gonna be my fire sim. Let's go inside. So I'm gonna use the new sparse solver. So let's choose the pyro sparse, and here the smoke sparse. Why I want to use this? Because I have a very curvy shape, and will be a lot of space inside of the bounding box, which we will not use. So, and the volume source not here connected, but there. Come on, my mouse tries to add some madness here. Add a ground plate. Definitely I want to do this because I want to have some interaction between the ground plane and my vortex. And I have two different sources. So basically the first one source I will create around my fuel. So it's going to be my fuel source. Let's grab the fuel out. Let's set the fuel to flame field. I guess I should have some the temperature field, because I need to have a temperature when we have a fire. So I can take a fuel into the temperature, and there's no velocities. Okay, in temperature scale and this scale I'm gonna leave by default as 1. So now let's add another volume source. Let's copy this, and you should grab the velocity out and take just the vector parameter val. So from attribute v, we're gonna have the velocity volume. I leave it again by default as 1, and I can set like a copy. So we need to copy those elements each time, and let's merge those guys together. Okay, let's save it because we have a lot of work. And let's enable my fire sim. Let's see what we can do with all this stuff. But before I want to play my simulation, I want to set my multi-field, because it will show me the flame itself. So let's add a density here. We don't have a density, but I will apply it. And 1 flame, and here's temperature. So now let's play it, and oh, here you go. Here's my container. So let's check, am I right? Fill out. That's fine. Yeah, now we can see it. Boom. My fire is rising up. Okay, let's move back. All right. Let's go to my camera. Yeah, I can use this view. Let's make a play blast so we can see what simulation we have by default. So there's no any changing, just import here some fuel and velocities. Now we'll see how it's moving. So I make a pause, and then we will see what we want to correct. And now we can see the first problem. We can stop it. Pretty nice fire anyway, but it doesn't create a rotation. The fire is rising up without any kind of forces which we applied here. And it's interesting why. If you look more closely, let me go here to the smoke sparse and go to predict lamp. Clamped ramp. What I want to do, I want to change the settings for my color to make it good periodic, to make it a little bit more understandable. So I'm going to add my color here. Just choose like render view to faster updating. That's what we have. So maybe there is some velocity forces, because we can see that it's going like here in this direction, but it's not a field source. It should be velocity source. But what's happened when our voxels, our information for flame, is going outside of our velocity field? So if you get back here, we can see that our velocity field is pretty thin, because we have velocity just inside of this. If our information, our flame, going here outside of velocity field, it will just move like a standard flame under the advection, and that's it. It will not move anymore with the vortex. So we need to expand our velocity field in the whole area, in whole volume, to fill the air with the velocity. Like in real world, when we have a tornado, there is movement not just inside of this tornado, there is a huge movement outside. So basically the big amount of air round create a vortex, and it will push smoke and fire and all other elements inside, from here, from here, from here, and from here. So we need to create a bigger volume and add more velocities. So how we can do this? In fact, pretty simple. We have our particles here with attribute transfer, and we transfer our particles from the volume. So here's either offset, but I want to take my tornado force and create a bounding box around this tornado, so to get the volume from this tornado. And with this bound, I will increase the lower padding for my x and the lower and upper padding for my x and z axis, like by 5 meters, to have a gap between the vortex and the side of this container. Okay, if you won't do this, let me just disable that. Now, if I transfer this information to points we create with this, so now you can see that it's like a column with a big amount of points, and we have transition. Inside of attribute transfer, we have a 3 meters transition, and you can see that it's clamping here. And again, if my fire will go outside in this area, again, it will just rising up under advection and will not go again to the vortex. So I will shrink this bounding box much from our left and right sides. Now you can see that we have like a point cloud and the vortex inside of this point cloud, which is very interesting. So now I will use like 3 meters for getting the normals, getting our velocities, sorry, not normals, velocities. Now we have too many points here, and we will create a volume around all of those points, but just with those which will have the velocity information. So in fact, we do need to remove those points which don't have velocity, but sometimes it can be helpful. So, and for those who doesn't know how to do this, it's pretty simple. We can say that, okay, if our particle, if our point doesn't have a velocity, so the length of our velocity attribute, the length of our vector will be equal to 0, then we just remove point, okay, and the points going from the first input by pt num, by the number of this point. and we'll remove all those points which doesn't have velocity. It's not that what we need to have in this case, because as you can see, with this node and without this node, we have almost the same velocity field, because if there is no velocity, if velocity is 0, then our volume rasterized attribute won't create the volume. But just if you want to, better see the shape and better see our transfer works, we can use even, like a blend width to create like a transition between zeros and those vectors. But in my case, I guess that this width with 3 meters should be fine for our simulation. So now I'm going to use this for creating a volume. And before I make another simulation, I want to add the noise, because there is no noise here. We create just a flat normals, flat because they have the same size, all right? But with the point velocity, we definitely can add a add some noise to those guys. So I'm gonna keep incoming, and with the curl noise, I add a little bit of noise to this. So by default, it creates a very, very huge noise. And definitely should have just a little bit smaller scale. I don't want to have a very, very turbulent velocity in this case. I can add turbulence inside of my simulation, basically. So I will reduce the pulse duration to make this noise be a little bit faster, and definitely increase the field size, because we have again a bigger noise. The bigger scale. It's like 75 meters, so 4 meters per for my noise should be fine. Maybe add a little bit more gain, just if you want to increase the quality to 0.75, maybe like this, and a little bit more turbulence to 5. Okay, so now it's like an hedgehog. Looking bad. Now, really good. Now let's see what we will have with this. So I'm going to leave this ramp, because that's how I can see like a structure of my flames. And let's increase my velocity here. So I multiply it by 2. Actually, I scale it by 2, but now it will push my flame with a bigger force, and it should keep my flame around the curve, near the curve. It will rotate it and push this information closer to curve. Okay, make a pause and we will see what is going on here. And as you can see, it's very, very slow movement. So now we can see that we have some rotation force, but it's not such a big. And the first reason is because the first thing, we can create a bigger velocity scale over here. So we can type it, I don't know, like 0.25, 2.25. But we also should remember that we have forces over here. And they are just 1, 1, 1 by default. We don't change nothing here. So I definitely want to create a better traction force, because I need to take this information and put this closer to my curve here. So let's add like a 5, 5, 5 for all those guys. And you can see, nice, like a car which is cleaning the street. This thing is on the front of that. Now let's go to camera again, and let's see. So this a lot of time we spend just for tests. So each time when you create a new project, you say, okay, I did this like 100 times. I already know how to do this. You can just set up some default parameters like I did here. So I know that, okay, if there's not enough velocity, we can increase it. If not enough voxel, we can do this. We can have some noise, different stuff. But the bigger part of all your work at your projects is testing different parameters, because you can see that, okay, there's a lot of, not too many speed. You're increasing the speed. All right, we increase the speed. Now we need to change another parameter, like a temperature maybe, or some dragging stuff. And it's always take a lot of time. A lot of time. And in this case, I want to, well, let's play it. So we have a nice rotation force. I guess it should be enough in my case, but what I want to do, I definitely need to add more traction force, more and more traction force. So let's close this. Come on, stop it. Press the escape button, and let's add like traction like at 15, and let's out my information. So import fields. Let's take our fire sim here. Let's grab a smoke object from this sim, and let's choose pyro. We have a density, velocity, rest, temperature, heat, not heat, but flame, fuel and color, don't need to have it. So, and let's make a file cache. So I'm gonna save this simulation to better understanding what is going on here. And then I will play with the shapes. So I want to have a proper dynamic, and then I will play with the shape. So let's save it out, maybe with not 500 frames, let's choose it like 150, don't need too many. So I want to have like 100 frames for a fast sim. So close this and home. What voxels do we have? We have a voxels 0.1, which is actually not bad. We can use it for the final simulation. So let's just increase it to 15 for a test. Okay, let's call this guy fire. So we need to save to the fire name and save to disk. So just wait a little bit and we will find out what shape correction we need to apply for this. And here is a moment where we need to apply some pyrosolver corrections at a little bit more sub-steps. You can see this shaking. So what problems we have here? Let's imagine that this fire, we just, I don't apply any visualization models here, so we can see our fire like a smoke, just representation from our cache, file cache node. So this is my fire. And you can see that we lose fire somewhere on this position. So we definitely need to create bigger flames and more turbulence should have. So let's go here to pyrosolver and let's make some changing. We begin with simulation, and the first thing I want to change here is make it a little bit faster. So timescale like 1.5 and increase the reference temperature to like 3000. Okay, so 6 times more. We can decrease the cooling rate, or we can go to flames and set the lifespan like 4, except of just 2. I don't want to go to smoke, and the reason why I don't want to do this, I think this, yeah, I can add a smoke because just a simple fire vortex will be not such interesting, and we should have some smoke, but I think that I will create 2 separate simulations for the smoke and for fire. So for this fire sim, I will leave just the flames. With the advanced mode, what I want to do is increasing the minimum and maximum simulation steps, like here 2x4, and that means that it doesn't matter what speed you will use as minimum 2 sub-steps, as a maximum just 4. And we can avoid such, dragging and shifting information because we have a huge velocities. And the more velocities we have, the more sub-steps we can use. And let's turn on all of those guys. So let's spend all money which have. 1.5, I guess, for disturbance should be fine. But as we know, disturbance works with the density. Let's change it to flame. We can decrease, actually, disable dissipation. It works just with smoke. If you don't have a smoke, we don't have dissipation. But anyway, we can leave it. So disturbance, I want to change not just the flame, I want to change the cutoff, like 0.1, and a little bit bigger block size, just a tiny bit, so 0.3 except of 0.2. I think that's it. Shredding, we're gonna leave. Actually, yeah, for fire shredding should be fine. And the turbulence is very important, but just let's increase the shredding like dramatically to 15. It should be like create nice shredding. We have a lot of velocity and the fire is moving very fast. We need to apply a very strong forces to break this shape. So maybe disturbance, not too many we'll put here, but shredding should be work fine. And the turbulence, let's say 10, if you want to apply this turbulence to our vortex. Let's change the swirl size to 2, so 2 meters should be fine. A little bit more grain, like 0.6 maybe, and a little bit more levels, 3. And what's most important, I don't want to have an influence field temperature, I want to apply this to velocity field, which should work much better. Okay, and it's controlling by density. We don't need a density, in fact. And let's apply our settings. Okay, let's save it. Save to disk again, 100 frames. So we correct our shape, increase the more substeps. It will definitely take a longer time for calculation, so let's wait.